She hugged a stranger to avoid her toxic ex, unaware he was a mafia boss who'd fall for her. Hi, my beautiful family. I speak to you today with a heart full of love, but also with truth. Our channel is built on your strength, your love, and your support. Every story I write is written with tears, with passion, and with prayer for each one of you. But my family, I see the channel going down because many forget to like, many forget to comment. It hurts me because it feels like my hard work is left unseen. I ask you today, not just as a creator, but as your brother who truly loves you. Please, whenever you watch, give your love back. A simple like, a simple comment keeps this family alive, keeps our light shining, and gives me the power to bring you more and more beautiful stories. May God bless every woman in this family with honor, with dignity, and with unshakable strength. May every man be blessed with wisdom and respect. May our children rise higher than mountains, and may every home be filled with endless love and peace. Amen. If your heart is true, write present. If your love is real, write in the comment where you're watching from. You know how some nights feel ordinary until they don't. That was Emily's Friday night. A casual outing with friends, a little laughter, the kind of night meant to prove she was finally free of Ryan's grip. But freedom, as she'd learned, doesn't always come easy. Halfway through her drink, she felt it. That heavy weight pressing down on the air. The unmistakable presence of Ryan storming into the bar. His voice, sharp and angry, cut through the crowd. Emily, we need to talk. Now. Her stomach dropped. She'd blocked his number, avoided his haunts, done everything short of leaving the city. And still, here he was, loud, possessive, convinced she owed him an explanation for daring to move on. Her friends froze. She could feel eyes on her, pity mixing with curiosity. That was Ryan's favorite stage public humiliation. He thrived on cornering her where escape felt impossible. But then Emily did something even she didn't plan. She turned, spotted a stranger leaning casually at the bar. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the kind of expression that said nothing and revealed everything. In a heartbeat, she crossed the floor, slipped her arms around him, and whispered the boldest lie she'd ever told. Just go with it. The man didn't flinch, didn't push her away. He simply glanced at Ryan, then at her, and placed one steady arm across her shoulders as if it had always been there. Ryan's face twisted. Who the hell is this? And here's where you'd think the story veers into ROM's own territory. Desperate girl, fake boyfriend, toxic ex storming off in defeat. Cute, right? Except this wasn't that kind of story, because the man Emily chose, on instinct, was not some random stranger. He was dangerous, powerful, the kind of man whose silence carried more weight than Ryan's shouting ever could. And in that moment, Ryan had no idea who he was actually challenging. Neither did Emily, but that single hug half-act of survival, half-accident was about to spiral into something far bigger than she could imagine. Betrayal, obsession, and a game where the stakes weren't just her heart, but her safety. You'd think the story ended at the bar, with a simple escape. But what followed? Pure chaos, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every twist of it. Hey, if you love stories where justice isn't just served, it's iced, plated, and delivered with a smirk, hit that subscribe button. These videos take hours of writing, editing, and recovering from second-hand rage. Your support keeps us going. Before that night at the bar, Emily's story was already messy. The kind of messy that doesn't happen all at once, it creeps in slowly, wrapping itself around you until you forget what peace even feels like. Ryan hadn't always been a villain. In the beginning, he was intoxicating. He knew exactly what to say, when to say it. Flowers at her office, Long, rambling texts about how she was the only person who ever really understood him, weekend getaways where he'd insist, "I've never felt this way before." Classic love bombing, though Emily didn't have the word for it back then. She just thought she'd finally found someone who saw her. But love bombing always has an expiration date, and when the charm wore off, Ryan's real nature came crawling out. It started small. "Why didn't you answer my call?" Then it escalated. "Who were you with?" And eventually, "Don't think I don't notice when guys look at you." At first, Emily brushed it off. Everyone gets insecure sometimes, right? But soon, the apologies started sounding scripted. "I'm sorry, baby. I just love you too much." And she wanted to believe him, because believing was easier than facing the truth. Then came the control. Subtle at first. He'd suggest what she should wear, then mock her choices if she didn't listen. He'd show up uninvited to girls' nights, claiming he just wanted to keep her safe. Safe, of course. Really meant isolated. Her friends saw it long before she did. Over brunch one Sunday, her best friend flat out said, "Emily, he's not protecting you. He's trapping you." Emily laughed it off, embarrassed. "It's not that bad. He just worries," but deep down, she knew it was worse than she wanted to admit. Be why the time she broke it finally, painfully, Ryan had already carved his shadow into her life. Blocking his number didn't matter. He made new ones. Avoiding him in public didn't matter. He always found her. He'd be leaning against his car outside her office, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Or he'd appear at her favorite coffee shop like he just happened to be passing by. One night, she left work late and found him waiting in the parking lot. "I just want to talk," he said, his voice tight with that dangerous mix of charm and threat. She told him, "Ryan, it's over. Please stop." But he only smiled. "You don't mean that. You just need time." That was Ryan in a sentence. He couldn't fathom a world where Emily's no was final. And if you've ever dealt with someone like that, you know how exhausting it is. Not just fear, but fatigue. The constant hyper-awareness. The way your heart leaps at every unexpected knock on the door. Emily tried to claw back normalcy. She started running in the mornings, filling her playlists with upbeat songs, surrounding herself with people who reminded her of who she used to be. But even in the middle of laughter, she felt the weight of him lurking nearby. The worst part. Sometimes he caught herself replaying the good moments, the early days when he seemed kind, attentive, even gentle. It made her question herself. Was she overreacting? Was she being unfair? That's what Ryan wanted, of course, to keep her doubting. But her friends wouldn't let her forget. Over dinner one night, her best friend leaned across the table and said, "He's not in love with you, Emily. He's obsessed. And there's a difference." And she was right. Obsession doesn't fade when you ask it to. It clings. It festers. It hunts for cracks in your resolve. That's the state Emily was in when she walked into that bar on the night everything changed. Tired, afraid, craving just one evening where she wasn't looking over her shoulder. She thought she'd found it, surrounded by laughter and music. But Ryan, he wasn't done. He never thought he'd have to be. Have you ever dealt with someone who just wouldn't let go? Drop a comment if you know the type. The night was supposed to be simple. Drinks with friends, loud music, easy laughter, and the illusion that Emily was finally out from under Ryan's thumb. But illusions never last long. She felt it before she saw him. That shift in the air, the kind where your chest tightens and your pulse skips. Then came the voice. Harsh, familiar, impossible to ignore. "Emily." Heads turned. There he was, Ryan, shoving his way past tables, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on her like she was prey that had dared to run. Emily's stomach dropped. Her friend stiffened, whispering her name, but she already knew there was no buffer strong enough to stop what was coming. Ryan thrived on spectacle, and this bar was his stage. You think you can ignore me? His voice carried, sharp enough to slice through the chatter. After everything I've done for you, you're just gonna walk away. Every nerve in Emily's body screamed at her to move, to run, to do something. But the crowd boxed her in, and Ryan, he was only steps away. That's when instinct took over. Her eyes darted across the bar, searching for an escape, and landed on him. A man leaning against the counter, tall, broad-shouldered, his expression unreadable in the dim light. He wasn't watching her, not exactly, but there was something about the way he held himself calm, detached, like the chaos around him didn't touch him at all. Before she could second-guess it, Emily crossed the floor. Her heart was pounding, her palms clammy, but her body moved anyway. She slipped her arms around the stranger's waist, pressed herself close, and whispered the boldest plea she'd ever spoken. Please, just go with it. Time stopped. At least, it felt like it. The man glanced down at her. No surprise flickered across his face. No questions. Just a pause, long enough for her to wonder if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. Then he moved. Slowly, deliberately. He rested one arm across her shoulders, pulling her in like she belonged there. His other hand stayed loose at his side, relaxed. But ready, Ryan froze. His face twisted, confusion warring with rage. Who the hell is this? The stranger didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was louder than any words. His gaze met Ryan's, steady and unblinking. The kind of stare that made even the most confident man hesitate. Emily held her breath. She expected Ryan to explode, to shout, to make a scene bigger than any before. Instead, for the first time, she saw it hesitation. The faintest flicker of doubt in Ryan's eyes. It didn't last. He scoffed, shaking his head. Pathetic. You really think hiding behind some random guy is gonna save you? But his voice wasn't as sharp as before. His bravado cracked around the edges. The stranger didn't flinch, didn't shift. He simply tilted his head, his expression calm. But there was something dangerous simmering beneath the surface. Something Ryan couldn't name but clearly felt. Emily whispered again, barely audible. Thank you. The man's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, then returned to stone. Ryan cursed under his breath and backed away, muttering something about this not being over. His retreat wasn't dramatic, but it was telling. For once, he hadn't gotten the scene he wanted. Emily's knees nearly gave out with relief. Her arms loosened, but the stranger kept his steady hold until Ryan had fully disappeared into the crowd. Only then did he release her. You all right? His voice was low, smooth, controlled. Emily nodded too quickly. I am sorry. I didn't know what else to do. He studied her for a long beat. Not judgmental, not amused, just measuring. Then he gave the slightest nod. You did what you had to, and that was it. No lecture, no demand for explanation. He turned back to the bar, signaling the bartender like nothing unusual had happened. Emily stood there, stunned. She'd just clung to a stranger, begged him for help, and he'd given it without questions, without hesitation. But whispers started the next day. Her friend messaged her first. Do you even know who that guy was? Emily frowned at her screen. Some random at the bar? Not exactly, apparently. He wasn't random at all. People called him Adrian. Stories followed his name like smoke. Some said he ran a string of businesses in the city. Others claimed those businesses were just fronts. Nobody ever spoke too loud when they mentioned him. Nobody dared. Dangerous, powerful, untouchable, and Emily sweet. Desperate Emily had wrapped her arms around him like he was her lifeline. For days, she couldn't shake the contradiction. Around Ryan, she'd felt small, cornered, suffocated. But around Adrian, for one fleeting moment, she'd felt safe. Even if that safety came wrapped in shadows. It terrified her. It intrigued her. And most of all, it changed everything. Would you ever fake being with a stranger to escape someone? Or is that way too risky? Ryan couldn't stand being embarrassed. That night at the bar, watching Emily drape herself around another man, watching that man stare him down in silence, it gnawed at him like acid. He left, sure, but humiliation doesn't just vanish for someone like Ryan. It festers, and when it festers, it turns cruel. The text came first. You think this is funny? You'll regret this. He's not gonna protect you forever. Emily blocked every number. He just made new ones. Then came the calls at work, the sudden appearances outside her apartment. He wasn't yelling this time. He was calmer, colder, which somehow made it worse. He was planning something. She could feel it. But something else was different too. Adrian started showing up. Not close, not obvious, just there. Once at the corner CAF where Emily picked up her morning coffee. Another time at the grocery store, leaning casually against a shelf like he had all the time in the world. He never approached her directly, but his presence was undeniable. At first, Emily thought it was coincidence. A city that big, maybe paths just crossed. But when it kept happening always, when Ryan was lurking nearby, she understood. Adrian wasn't ignoring her. He was watching him, and the strange thing, Emily felt safer. It made no sense. She barely knew Adrian. He was rumored to be dangerous, the kind of man no one crossed. Yet, standing in his silent orbit, Emily's chest didn't tighten the way it did with Ryan. She breathed easier, because Adrian wasn't trying to control her. He was observing, calculating, waiting. Ryan, on the other hand, spiraled. One night, he cornered her in the parking lot outside her office. His smile was sharp, unhinged. So this is what it's come to, hiding behind some thug. You really think he cares about you? He'll toss you aside the second he's bored. Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat was so tight. That's when Adrian stepped out of the shadows. He didn't announce himself. He didn't rush. He just appeared smooth, deliberate, like he'd been standing there the whole time. Ryan stiffened. You again. Adrian didn't blink. His voice was low, measured. You've had your fun. Now you're done. It wasn't a threat, not in the traditional sense. No raised voice, no dramatics, just a statement of fact, delivered with the weight of someone who always gets the last word. Ryan laughed. Too loud to forced. What are you gonna do? Break my legs? You don't scare me. But the crack in his voice betrayed him. Adrian didn't move closer. He didn't have to. He just looked at Ryan, head tilted slightly, eyes flat and steady. And in that silence, Ryan's bravado wilted. Even as he forced a smirk, Emily stood between them, caught in the gravity of two worlds colliding, the chaos of Ryan's obsession and the calm, dangerous control of Adrian's power. For the first time, she realized the truth. This wasn't just about her anymore. Ryan had stepped into a game he didn't understand, and Adrian, he wasn't going to play by Ryan's rules. If someone like Adrian stepped in, would you feel safer or more terrified? Emily thought things might calm down after that night in the bar, but instead, her life started to feel like she was balancing on a tightrope strung between two storms. On one side was Ryan, unraveling faster by the day. On the other was Adrian, the stranger who was no longer a stranger. Now, let's be clear. Adrian wasn't the knight in shining armor type. He wasn't bringing her flowers or writing cute little texts in the morning. He was watchful, patient, respectful in a way Ryan had never been. When Emily said no, Adrian actually listened. When she needed space, he gave it. That alone was enough to confuse her. Wasn't this the same man people whispered about in hushed tones? The one with the kind of reputation that made grown men change sidewalks? Meanwhile, Ryan was doing what toxic EXCs do best, spiraling. He told anyone who'd listen that Emily had cheated, that she was unstable, that Adrian was some rebound thug she picked up to get back at him. Lies, all of it. But lies spread faster than truth, and soon Emily found herself getting side eyes at work, awkward messages from old friends, and a cold silence from people she thought she could count on. Ryan wasn't just bitter, he was dangerous. The late-night calls started again, the notes under her door. At one point, he even waited outside her apartment, demanding she talk things through. Emily's hands shook as she dialed the only number she thought could help. Adrian's. And here's the thing, Adrian didn't swoop in with flashing lights or dramatic threats. He showed up quietly, leaning against his car with that same unreadable calm. When Ryan stormed toward him, hurling insults, Adrian didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped forward, close enough that Ryan had to crane his neck to meet his eyes, and said, "Leave her alone," for words. That was it. No theatrics, no shouting. Just a warning, cold as steel. Ryan laughed in his face. Of course he did. Men like Ryan always think they're untouchable. Until they're not. For Emily, it was complicated. She was grateful, how could she not be? But with every encounter, she couldn't ignore the truth. Adrian wasn't just protecting her. He was pulling her, inch by inch, into a world she didn't understand. A world where debts were collected, respect wasn't asked for but demanded, and safety came with invisible strings attached. Still, in Adrian's presence, she felt something she hadn't in months. Maybe years. Safe, not because he promised her protection, but because he embodied it. That kind of safety comes with weight. And Emily knew whether she wanted it or not, her life would never be the same. Do you think Adrian is protecting Emily out of kindness or something more? If Emily thought Ryan's tantrums had reached their peak, she was wrong. He had one more scene left in him, loud, reckless, and cruel enough to make bystanders stop and stare. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. Emily was leaving a CF downtown, the kind of place with glass walls, and too many people scrolling on their phones. Perfect audience for Ryan's performance. He spotted her across the street and stormed over, voice already raised. "Emily, you think you can just erase me, replace me with him?" His finger chapped toward Adrian, who'd been waiting quietly by his car. People turned their heads. Conversation stalled. Emily froze, heat crawling up her neck. She tried to push past Ryan, but he grabbed her wrist tight enough to sting. That's when Adrian moved. Not fast, not violent, just a single step forward, his shadow falling across both of them. His voice was low, steady. Let her go. Now Ryan could back down. He should have. But Ryan's pride was louder than his fear. He laughed, bitter and sharp. "What? You think you scare me? You're nothing but some thug she's clinging to because she's pathetic without me." The crowd winced. Even strangers could sense he'd gone too far. Adrian didn't raise his hand. He didn't need to. Within minutes, two men Emily had never seen before appeared at his side, well dressed, polite, but unmistakably watchful. Ryan's face drained of color. For the first time, he hesitated. That was Adrian's mask slipping, not rage, not violence, but power. Quiet, deliberate influence that turned a bustling street into his stage. Emily's stomach twisted. Because here was the truth. She wasn't just hiding from Ryan anymore. She was stepping into Adrian's world, where even silence carried weight and people noticed. Her friends started asking questions. Her aunt left her a voicemail, whispering that she'd heard things about the man Emily was seeing. CEO workers exchanged looks, as if she'd traded one mistake for another. Emily wanted to scream that they were wrong, that Adrian was nothing like Ryan. But late at night, lying awake, she couldn't ignore the thought. Was safety really safety if it came with invisible strings? Adrian never pressured her. He didn't demand loyalty. Yet every glance, every word, carried an unspoken truth. Once you're under his protection, you're in. Ryan had crossed a line that day, and Adrian had answered without ever lifting a hand. But Emily knew the real choice wasn't about Ryan anymore. It was about Adrian. About whether she would step back or lean in. So let me ask you. Ryan wasn't finished, not by a long shot. When public tantrums didn't work, he switched tactics. His weapon of choice. Words. It started with a text, then another, then 3 paragraphs at 2 in the morning. Emily, I messed up. You know I didn't mean it. We were perfect, you and me against the world. Don't throw that away. Classic Ryan apologies dressed up like love letters, dripping with just enough guilt to keep you hooked. And when she didn't respond, he doubled down. The messages grew longer, messier. One moment he was begging, please, just talk to me. I can change. I'll be better. The next he was raging. So this is who you are now. Running to someone else like a coward. And through it all, Emily stayed silent. No replies. No explanations. Just silence. That silence became her power. For years, Ryan had thrived on pulling her into arguments, twisting every word she said. But now he was shouting into an empty void. Adrian noticed, of course. He always noticed, but he didn't interfere. That was the difference between him and Ryan. Adrian wasn't trying to control her story. He was giving her the space to write it herself. Still, Emily could tell by the way his jaw tightened when Ryan's name popped up on her phone that Adrian was keeping score in his own way. And here's the thing about silence, it drives manipulators insane. Ryan couldn't stand not being heard. His texts turned into emails. Long, rambling letters about fate, about destiny, about how no one else could ever love her the way he did. Emily read them once. Then she stopped opening them at all. Because here's the truth. Sometimes the scariest revenge isn't a grand gesture. It isn't screaming, or plotting, or even exposing someone. Sometimes the scariest revenge is the one you don't see coming, and Ryan, he had no idea what was coming next. Time has a way of dulling even the loudest voices. Ryan's rants, his desperate letters, his constant shadowing, eventually, all of it faded into background noise. He went from storming into rooms to disappearing from them altogether. And Emily, she didn't miss him. Not even a little. She wasn't the same girl who had once hugged a stranger in a bar out of pure panic. That moment had been survival. But now she was learning how to live again. And the stranger Adrian wasn't much of a stranger anymore. Their relationship wasn't a fairy tale. Far from it. Adrian's world was dark, sharp-edged, and filled with dangers Emily had only glimpsed in movies. Men who spoke in half sentences. Conversations that stopped the second she entered the room. Phones that buzzed at odd hours. Followed by Adrian leaving without explanation. But here's what mattered. He never treated her like Ryan had. Adrian never cornered her with guilt. He never demanded her time or her silence. Instead, he gave her choices, and in doing so, something radical happened. Emily began to trust herself again. One evening, she asked him point blank, "Why even bother with me? You could have walked away that night." Adrian didn't hesitate. "Because you didn't flinch. You saw chaos, and you didn't run. You held on." People like that are rare. It wasn't flowers and poetry. It was something steadier. Respect. Emily realized she wasn't hiding anymore, not from Ryan, and not from the shadows Adrian carried with him. She was choosing choosing where to be, choosing who to let in, choosing herself. And that was the quiet victory, because protection isn't about control. It's about giving someone the freedom to finally breathe. Emily's story didn't end the night she hugged a stranger to escape her ex. That was only the beginning. What followed was transformation, slow, steady, and undeniable. She went from a woman cornered by manipulation to someone who could finally stand on her own. From silencing herself out of fear to choosing silence as her sharpest weapon. And in the unlikeliest twist of fate, the stranger she clung to in panic became the one who showed her what respect actually feels like. No grand speeches, no promises wrapped in guilt, just space, freedom, the chance to breathe. Ryan faded into the background, his noise swallowed by his own irrelevance. And Emily, she became something more than a survivor. She became someone who chose herself and demanded others do the same. And maybe that's the quietest kind of revenge. Not destroying the person who tried to break you, but proving they never had that kind of power in the first place. Hey, if you found this story as gripping as I did, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. These videos take hours to sift through wild Reddit tales, shape them into something cinematic, and share them with you. Your support keeps this channel alive, and trust me, we've got plenty more where this came from.